since we have such a hope, we are very bold.
Steve Teel, Very Bold Radio and Podcast, man. I'm fired up. Just meeting this young man. Now listen to this. This is Alex Sezer Jr. All right, you Aggie fans. There's so much to say about you, Alex. You Texas Aggie fans, you know Alex Sezer, man, captain of the football team. In 2016, he was awarded the Aggie Heart Award. That's the highest honor that can go to a Texas Aggie senior football player. We got to talk about that some. Got to talk about some of your experiences. But also, I want you guys to know he's a speaker. He's in the public schools. He's in the business sector. He has been a very successful entrepreneur, but his greatest success is being obedient to God and what God calls him to do. So we're going to talk about that. But check this out. He's been a speaker for 15 years. 15 years. Now, I got to tell you the next thing. We could put up like a multiple choice. So how old is Alex Sezer Jr.? And the fact is you're 28 years old.
28.
Man, I want to talk about the Aggies because I know my sports fans want to hear about that. But you've been speaking so since you were 13 years old.
Yep.
Man, tell us about that first. What the heck, man? That's awesome, Alex.
I guess that was the second call, so to speak. So I gave my life to Christ whenever I was 13 years old and hadn't looked back. And I think even before that, people probably, some of my teachers noticed that I was kind of a disruptive kid, but also
I want to hear about that.
That I had a way of communicating and a way of getting people to follow. And I think
you've just always been a leader.
Yeah. So the first 13 years of my life, I was leading people in the wrong direction, but I've always been a leader.
Yeah.
And then after that, it started off 13 and just being, I can't take credit for being gifted with an ability to be able to dissect scripture in a way that people could understand, especially people that were younger. And then so to be able to take it and make it plain to people, my dad saw that. My grandfather, who was a pastor as well, saw that gifting, and it was like immediate. I mean, I'm teaching Sunday school.
What?
Yeah.
At 13, they could identify this gift that God gave you. They saw you like talk and teach, and they're like, he's got it.
Yeah.
So let's put him to work.
Absolutely. So I started off with, people that were my age and younger. And after a few years in, I think I was about 16, maybe 17 years old. I started preaching from the pulpit on Sunday. And, it's a smaller church, but
I don't care
to be that age, I guess, and be able to handle some of the pressures that come with that. And then still be a kid that goes to high school, that plays sports, and everything else that kind of comes with that was an early learning experience for me. And then I started speaking at schools whenever I was in high school. So I would go back to the elementary and the junior highs and the intermediate schools and speak to those students about being a football player and being an athlete and just kind of what it takes, and to go from little league football to high school football and that transition. And then whenever I graduated and went to college, I was actually, shout out to Mikado Henson. He's the director of player development at A&M. I believe I was the first, probably the only, I don't think anyone has done it afterwards, his first player that he allowed to do chapel while still being an active player.
Come on now.
So that was a pretty cool experience. We were on the road playing Mississippi State, and I had the chance to share with my teammates and my coaches while I was still playing. So I led chapel before the game.
Man, what'd you talk about? What'd you talk about?
So
do you remember?
I do remember. It was the walls of Jericho. And what I talked about was being I think the title was Process to Promise. And just talking about how that when you think of going into battle, you think of let's storm the castle. Let's pull out the sword and just go to town, so to speak, drop a bomb on the enemies. However, God gave them this kind of out of the ordinary strategic war strategy that no one probably had ever seen before. So you have all of these guys that are just ready to go to town, and he says, I want you to walk around the walls. And do this 6 times. And
Yeah.
on the seventh time, I want you to walk around and I want you to make a loud shout. And when I read scripture, I try to
Yeah.
input myself into that conversation
Come on.
and
Yeah.
just imagine what that leader would have felt when
Yeah.
God gives you this battle plan. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Can you repeat that? But just to
Right.
be patient in that process. And that's a lot like life.
Mm.
Whenever we think something's going to happen, it's going to be big and dramatic, and God places us in a process. And we have to trust him that God is faithful, even when we don't see it, even when we don't understand necessarily what he's doing.
Yeah.
We trust him at his word and say, you know what? He told us to walk. We're going to get walking.
Yeah.
And then just the pure will of those guys, that was not an easy task.
Yes.
If you look at the perimeter, the circumference of Jericho, that city, and how long those guys had to march with their armor and their gear, just to be patient and to trust God at his word in that process. I equated that to athletics, and hey, we've trusted him in the process of two-a-days. We've trusted him in the process of the grind and the spring ball and the camps, and we were patient in that process. Now it's time to go to battle. So just talking about the process to the promise that before the walls in life fall down, there are steps that we have to take in order to get that promise. So that's what I talked about.
That's strong. That's strong. Now, I've done some football chapels. I've done a lot of high school football chapels, and I got to one time for my school, Oklahoma, the Sooners.
Nice.
I actually got to do the chapel, which was a once in a lifetime experience for me, not for you. I mean, you're a Texas Aggie, you're there, but so the next question I got to ask is, did y'all win that game?
You know what? We did not.
Oh man, okay.
But I came back and did chapel after I graduated. And that was my joke. I said, hey guys, the first time I did chapel as a player, we did not win that game. I'm counting on you to make sure I get to come back again. So my record's good now. And then A&M track has done pretty well in the past whenever I've done chapel as well. So I've redeemed myself, but I did take it a little personal that the guys were fired up, but we did not win that game.
I love it, man. Well, talk to us a little bit more about your experiences, if you don't mind, as a college football player. Maybe a memory for you that is really special. It may not be like your best game, but something about it that's special. And take us in the locker room to some of the challenges, for just us normal fans. It just looks so glamorous and we're cheering y'all on. And
absolutely. I'll start with how I got to A&M.
Yeah, good.
Because it's kind of a unique story in itself. So anyone who knows anything about recruiting knows that it's not a good idea to have 0 scholarship offers headed into your senior year.
Yeah.
That was my situation.
Okay.
So to give you a snapshot, 0 offers heading into my senior year.
Yeah.
2013, first game of the season, start as a true freshman.
Whoa.
So we have to go with what happened in between those start of senior year, start of freshman year in college. So I had been training. I mean, I threw my everything into being a Division I athlete.
Yeah.
The way that the cards and the chips fell, so to speak, I was injured almost every year in high school.
Oh, man.
So if you probably total up my games, my varsity games that I played, it would probably equate to maybe 1 season.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm going into my senior year, and A&M has what they called a satellite camp, which means that they can't have these anymore. It's illegal in the SEC, but it was the first year in the SEC for them, which meant they were technically still under some other rules. So it was the last year they could have these camps. I didn't know anything about A&M football.
Really?
So I was born in Louisiana, lived there for 10 years before I moved to Orange, Texas. So I was an LSU guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they have this camp, and it was supposed to be in Louisiana, I believe.
Okay.
The school that was hosting it, the high school, canceled, or something happened to where Coach Sumlin called my high school coach. And if you know anything about my high school, we have not put out a lot of Division I football players. So they had no reason to have it at my high school other than the proximity to Louisiana. We're on the border.
Yeah.
So who says no to Kevin Sumlin? However, we forgot to cut the grass and a bunch of other things that did not go right with that day. But I showed up to the camp. I was getting dressed for church on a Sunday morning, and my dad told me that A&M was in town. He thought I should give it one more shot. I was kind of looking towards track at that point. I was doing pretty well in track. So could go almost anywhere to run if I wanted to.
Wow.
And I showed up at the camp.
Yeah.
5'9", 167 pounds. They asked me what position I played. I told them running back. And they looked at me and they said, okay. It's kind of a small SEC running back. But so I signed up to be a running back at the camp. And the first thing we did was test the 40-yard dash.
Okay.
And I run the first go round of the 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
And I start to see heads kind of turning and people kind of chirping and talking. So the running backs coach was actually the coach that was timing me, Coach McKinney.
Okay.
And I start to walk back to the line, and Coach Sumlin walks up to me and says, "Hey son, can you run that again?" And I'm thinking, yeah, sure. So I walk back to the starting line. I look up, and every single coach on the staff is timing me. They shut the camp down.
Oh my God.
So I go through, run the 40-yard dash again. I had all these watches on me. Right. They're all just kind of nodding like, yep, Coach McKinney's thumb wasn't broken. This is legit. We need to run this guy through some drills.
Wow.
So instead of going with the running backs, they asked me to go with the defensive backs.
Okay.
I'd never played defensive back in my life. Other than like in practice, never took a game snap.
Right.
Really at that position. I like to have the ball. Give me the ball, coach. So I go with the defensive backs, somehow have a solid camp. The last play of the camp, they line me up against a guy who I believe is playing NFL football right now, Trey Quinn. He played receiver at LSU. Wow. Disclaimer, it was not his fault. It was the quarterback's fault. But the last play of the camp, picked the ball off, took it for 6.
No.
Shut it down. At this point, TexAgs.com, Rivals.com, Scout.com, all of these guys are flocking to me for interviews.
No way.
And
Alex,
long story short, they offered me a full scholarship without ever seeing me play real football before.
I mean, that day, did they offer you?
They wanted to offer me that day. They didn't know anything about me, my transcript, etc. But so they called me Monday, I believe. They hosted a coaches meeting. Coach Sumlin, that day, they actually had the chance to talk to my high school coach because it was at my high school.
Yeah.
My high school principal. So I was ranked second in my class in high school. And they were like, what kind of guy is he? They said, look, we don't know if he's going to be Johnny Manziel. However, we know you're not going to have to pick him up out of jail. He's going to be a great teammate. Right. He's going to pass his classes. So that Monday, Coach Sumlin calls me. He says, hey, we have a coaches meeting today. And here was a topic. He says, all I did was write your name on the whiteboard, and that's all we talked about. We want you to come play football at A&M.
Wow.
So I graduate high school early.
That's a crazy story. What was your reaction when he told you that?
It was, I kind of expected it by Monday because the weekend was ridiculous. I mean, phones blowing up, internet going crazy. Yeah. They took my head and put on like a Caesar's body, and they started like doing the Hell Caesar post and all that kinds of stuff.
Right away.
It was, to most people, it looked like an overnight success. Right. But I'll work my butt off every single summer. Yeah. From middle school on up. Yeah. So it was just kind of the perfect storm, so to speak. But yeah, so I thought I would redshirt.
Okay, wait, time out. I got a question. I mean, I got a lot of questions, but what was your 40, man? What did they clock you at?
So that day, I was on grass. So there's a myth online somewhere
Yeah.
The grass was about 6 to 8 inches high.
6 to 8
The
inches.
groundskeeper didn't cut the grass because we weren't expecting to have a football camp.
Wait.
No, legitly. So that day on grass, I was in the 4.3s, 4.4s, a lot of watches on me. I ran on the track that summer. I ran like mid 4.2s, but those aren't legit times. Like it was on a track surface, but legit 4.3. And the thing that kind of blew their mind, that's a solid time.
Come on, that's more than solid.
At A&M, tore my hamstring and ran a 4.4. Tore my hamstring like 7 yards out, blew it like off the bone. And Coach Jackson still clicked the watch, and he was just like, "What in the world?"
That's crazy.
Yeah, don't take my word for it. Look it up. There are guys out there who can verify the story. But I'm
taking your word for it. That's crazy.
So
6 to 8 inches.
I think the thing that kind of blew their minds was that the next fastest time that day was about, I think, a 0.3 second like difference because of the field conditions.
Yeah.
I kind of had an unfair advantage. I practiced on those fields. I trained on those fields. So to me, it was just a normal day in the office.
Yeah.
It messed up a lot of people that day, but yeah, it was just kind of God's divine hand on everything. And
for real,
preparation met opportunity. And as I say, that equals success. So it was a day that seemed like Alex Sezer came out of nowhere and was an overnight success. A lot of work went into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy though. If they make a movie out of your life story, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like you just picture that grass and you picture people not believing as they're watching, like, oh, that's Disney, of course they but that's crazy. Like that's unbelievable.
And the craziest thing is, like, normally when guys are getting like offers, they're known. They have a rivals.com, a scout.com, a profile. I didn't even have a profile. They had to make my profile that weekend. I had 0 stars. And they said I was from Maurice, Louisiana, instead of Little Cypress, Mauriceville, Texas. And my middle name happens to be Maurice. So everyone was just so confused with who I was and where I was from and what position I played. And there were a lot of people that did not speak well of me. In the A&M fan club, just because I mean, a guy comes from nowhere, and you always have those keyboard guys that are like, who's this guy? This guy,
keyboard guys,
stiff hips, he'll never play here, and just I read the message boards. I don't know if you should do that or not, but I did. It was motivation for me. And first game of 2013, I was on the field as a true freshman.
Man, that's crazy. So tell us a little bit about how that happened. I mean,
so it's the last time I've ever played with a mouthpiece before. So now A&M comes out of, with the whatever $450 million renovation. That number may not be right. Maybe it was $150 million. It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So with the renovation, you walk out of the locker room and you run out of the tunnel almost immediately. It's 30-second walk. You're walking into the tunnel.
Yeah.
Well, before the renovation, my freshman year, you walked out of the locker room and all the way around the stadium.
Wow.
And Aggie band would play, and it was a long walk. You get to see your family, and they play this little dun 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 dun, and the people were just kind of waving their towels.
Yeah.
I was so nervous that day that my mouth began to like stick together.
Oh man.
So much so that I had the mouthpiece in and it started to kind of like stick to my mouth. I literally had to take it out and just throw it to the coaches on the sideline. And that was the last day I ever played with a mouthpiece. Thankfully, I still have all of my teeth. But I was cotton mouth was just crazy.
Yeah.
And eventually it wore off because I practiced against Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans every single day. And we had some guys who could play some ball. I mean, Mike Evans.
Yeah.
He can just go down the list. Travis Labhart, Darrell Walker, Jaquay Williams, Ricky Seals-Jones, Christian Kirk. I mean, I just had a list of guys I was fortunate to play against every single day in practice. Josh Reynolds, that are just still, some of those guys that I named are still, in the league. And Mike Evans, he's a Hall of Famer, first ballot. So Yeah, it was a great
What was
experience.
that like going against those guys competing every day in practice?
Well, the first
Ah,
first couple of months were rough. I got baptized essentially.
yeah.
So it was funny because my first day of practice, I get into a stance, and as a DB, you're going backwards. But I never played the position. So
Right.
my defensive back stance pre-snap looked like I was a receiver. So instead of kind of dropping the butt and
Yeah.
being ready to backpedal, I was in the same stance as the receiver who was running at me. So I was in no position at all to go backwards.
Right.
And I was faster than most guys, but
Yeah.
I just didn't know when to turn. So
Yeah.
Mike would literally just run by me every single time. And eventually I couldn't cover a post route to save my life. And the first, I'm starting in the spring game, national television.
Wow.
And this is before the season. So I've only gotten about 2 to 3 months under my belt playing this position. Johnny looks at me pre-snap and he just kind of nods his head. Like,
Oh, come on, man.
I'm like, no, Johnny, please don't do it. First play of the spring game, Darrell Walker runs a post route. And I'm like, whatever you do, I just went into that game. Whatever you do, you will not get beat on a post.
Yeah.
Darrell breaks for that post. I'm like, not today. I break, open those hips. Johnny puts the ball in the air. First play, the crowd goes crazy. And I'm thinking, I'm not letting this guy catch a touchdown on me. In the end zone, I punched the ball out. That was my first play.
For real?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. You had me like spellbound. I did not know
Yeah.
how that was going to end.
So that was an interesting experience. But Johnny looked at me and just kind of gave me the nod, like, I'm coming at you, rookie. So
Right. I guess you got a little respect though after that,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah. It was I earned my respect that spring. I wasn't the best player on the team, but I was feisty, I was scrappy, and guys knew I had their back. So
How did guys know that you had their back? Tell us about what that's about.
I was a workout warrior. So
Okay.
coaches knew, like, you do whatever you want to do, like, you're not going to break me. So we had these things called my freshman year was the first time I believe we'd ever done it as a program, and it's actually called the program.
Okay.
And essentially what it is SEAL Team 6 guys who've been in helicopter crashes and survived, flipped upside down in the ocean, didn't know if he was swimming in the right direction. You black out and everything's dark, you just swim. Those kinds of guys.
Yeah.
The first, they came in and trained with us, and that's when I kind of elevated myself as a team leader as a freshman, because guys knew, like, this guy is tough. And I took it, and I'm like, whatever you do, like, don't quit. You're not going to break me. And as we start to do that, I kind of emerged in the workouts as a team leader.
As a freshman.
And earn some respect there. So there's actually a video clip online of those guys kind of talking about the team and some guys who stood out. As I got older, I believe they came back every single year. But yeah, so
You gotta find that, or I'll try to find that clip.
Yeah.
But if I don't find it, I want to see that.
I believe Texags was the one who released
Okay.
it. So it's somewhere on Texags. I think his name is Eric Capitulic, or
Okay.
I'm probably butchering his name, but he's a SEAL team guy. He
Okay.
gave a review about some guys in the program. So yeah, it was a great experience. And then I think it just kind of speaks to the fact of, being a good teammate, being a teammate guy, team first guy. Because I had my own adversities to go from playing as a true freshman, tearing my hamstring, coaching changes, not being on the field anymore, working my way back onto the field, starting again, as a junior, senior.
Is that how it happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a transition. So I had my ups and my downs. There's a lot of guys right now that are still playing, in the NFL that were kind of my guys that I kind of brought up in the program that I was a big brother to. So it's
really, that's cool.
It was an interesting experience.
Boy, interesting
life-changing.
Covers a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting covers a lot, man.
So yeah, there's a lot of stories.
Well, pick one out that you can share that you don't normally share, but you can share here and not get you in trouble.
Yeah. I'm trying. I'm trying to think of one that's I can say names and not get in trouble.
Yeah.
What kind of story do you want?
Man, did one pop in your head? Did one kind of pop? I'll take
So,
whatever. I just know it's going to be a good story.
I'm trying to think of, because there's so much. I mean, workouts and practice, and I'll tell them myself. How about that?
Okay. All right. Okay. That's safe.
So I try in all circumstances, on the field, off the field, to represent Christ as best as I can.
Yeah.
I am not perfect.
Same.
I'm competitive, but tame now. As a child, I was a competitive, sore loser.
Yeah.
In college, I was in the middle.
Okay.
But more tamed.
Yeah.
But I had a coach who liked to kind of see how far I could go, because off the field, I'm this very reserved, respectful guy. But on the field, they kind of want to see a little bit of edge. Like, does this guy have any dog in him, so to speak?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but they could have figured that out from the Navy SEAL training, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but they still just want to push.
Yeah.
Push.
So
All right.
So I'm getting some buttons pushed.
Yeah.
And I'm in practice, and it's 3-on-2. So essentially what happens is you have two blockers and one other receiver. It's a screen drill. They throw the ball to a receiver, and the cornerback and a safety, you got to defeat the block, make the tackle.
Yeah.
So we go through the drill, defeat the block, push the guy out, shed him, make the tackle.
Wow.
After the drill is over with, I guess he wasn't happy about that, and he pushes me in the back.
Okay.
I won the drill. I don't care. Turn the other cheek, so to speak. I walk away.
Yeah.
My coach just yells out, "Hey, Alex, I knew you were nice, but I know you were soft."
Pushing buttons hard.
And that just set me off.
Yeah.
So I said, line back up. So we go in the drill again.
You said line back.
Yeah, we go in the drill again. I kind of do the same deal. And this time he pushes me and I just lose it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're going at it. And thank God for forgiveness. Thankfully, we had helmets on. So it's not the same as fighting someone on the streets, but I've had enough of my coach kind of
chirping you. Yeah.
So I'm embarrassed. Oh my gosh, my teammates have seen me kind of lose it, so to speak. So I just start walking to the fence. Yeah. And they're all screaming, "Seize, Sezer, seize." I had nothing to do with them. I walked away, come back later. I calmed down. I finished practice. The coaches loved it. I ended up driving that same guy home that night. Like, no hard feelings at all. I said, "Hey, I did not want to fight you. I really wanted to fight Coach, but I couldn't do it." He didn't have a helmet on, so I had to take it out on somebody.
Right.
So newsflash, Alex Sezer is not perfect by any means. But the craziest thing, this is the craziest part of the story.
Okay.
The next day, I'm still not having it. So we get into this drill, and tight ends join the drill.
Oh, man.
I have a teammate named Cameron Clear.
Okay.
Cam is about, don't get mad at me if I short him on some inches, I'd say 6'8", 330 at the time. I'm 5'9", 170 at the time.
Yeah.
And Alex Sezer's not having it. So we line up in the drill, and this is the second day, and I go at Cam, and I hit him. And he didn't go very,
right.
But I put all of my little Mighty Mouse I could into Cam's chest. And he kind of shoves me a little bit. And I reared up to him, and I bowed up to Cam, and he looks down at me. Literally, he's looking down. And all of the guys, I mean, they respected me on the team. Like, if you had a problem, no one tried to get on the line with me. If anyone had a problem with me, you had a problem with the other 100 guys on the team. Everyone had my back.
Wow. Yeah.
Cam looks at me and he just shakes his head and he goes, "I can't do it to you, C's." But I was going to give him everything. I said, I don't know if I would have won, but he would have had to kill me on that field. But he just looked at me and said, "I can't do it to you, C's." And to this day, I'm so thankful, Cam. I appreciate you. Thank you for not letting my hot-headedness get in the way of my sanity. So, yeah.
That is hilarious, man.
But I have stories for days.
Yeah, those are great stories, man. Wow. I can't wait to read your book. And I know there's some other stories, and I don't know how you'll protect the names of the guilty or the innocent, but man, those are some great stories. I love it, Alex. How cool. All right. Last football question. If other football stories come up, because I do want to talk and get your insights on, biblical leadership and what you've learned from Jesus. I do just have to say, like, what a unique combination for you, that toughness is a big part of who you are. But also intelligence, smarts. I mean, second in your class. And I know your grades are somewhere here. You graduated with big honors.
Yeah, one of those Latin words that means something.
Yeah, something big that they never talked about with me in the same sentence, I promise you.
My grandfather had a joke. So I graduate, I think the correct pronunciation is magna cum laude.
Okay.
But I think people say, magna cum laude. Right. My grandfather says, my grandson graduated magna cum laude. He says, I graduated, thank you, laude.
Same. I like that. So, I mean, to be tough, but to also at a very young age be a Christian. I haven't mentioned that yet. I mean, you have to be such an athlete. And to have all those intelligence, like, what the heck, man? I'm glad you just shared a story about not being perfect, because I mean, it seems like you have everything going.
That is a very much a misconception. Alex Sezer's not perfect. Put that in bold somewhere.
Maybe that's your autobiography.
Just ask my wife.
yeah, exactly. Bring her in.
They'll always tell you. She says she brags on me all the time, but she tells me I'm not perfect. She'll tell her friends all my good stuff. But you know what? I am, and I say this often, because of a God who saves and a family that raised, a village that raised. There is no me without a list of hundreds of other people. So I really can't take much credit, to be honest. I'm just trying to be obedient as much as I can. But how I was as a child, if I would have grown up in a fatherless house, I'd probably be in prison. Just looking at who I was whenever I was younger. I walked off campus as a third grader. Said some things I shouldn't have said to a teacher and literally just left campus.
Wow.
I did a lot of things very early on that when you think of, troubled 18-year-old, that was me at like 8.
Wow.
So I can't take credit for who I am.
Yeah.
It's parents that had me as teenagers and decided to stick it out and stay together. My parents are in their 40s, have been married for over, I guess they're going on 29 years. And my dad just turned, I guess, 45 or 46.
Wow.
So there's no me without that story. My grandfather being a pastor, being raised around that. My dad's dad and my mom's dad being preachers, pastors. So there is no me without a bunch of other people. And it would take a decade for me to name them all. But so that's how I became who I am. God who saved and the village that raised.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. It's hard for me to imagine such a turnaround. Like, you've got those strong parents and everything, and yet it sounds like you're pretty wild, wild child with that anger and everything.
I was rough.
I mean, real quick, because I got so many other things, and I don't want to take 8 hours of your day. But I mean, how did Christ get a hold of you when you were 13, and you could have kept going that way, even though these people loved you?
Yeah, I fought it. Being raised in a church, but I fought it for a long time. I was with the wrong crowd. I wanted to be on the streets. I wanted to do what the guys, all of the gangster thug, like that's what I wanted to be.
It was attractive to you.
If you go look at my pictures, and like as a child, like I messed up every single family picture. I had chains and watches and just me mugging all the time. So that's what I wanted to be. I'm a combination of my dad and my parents, being very active. I remember walking into the house sagging for the first time. That was the last time I sagged my pants around my dad. because he hit me right where I was sagging. Um, so that was just a belt placement for him. But
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
so yeah, but I fought church and the call for a long time
Yeah.
because I felt that call early on.
Yeah.
And I remember squirming in my seat sometimes during sermons, just like, oh man, he's talking about me. I don't want to do that. I don't want to change the life I'm living. Like I was, doing a lot of stuff I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Stuff that I'm embarrassed about now.
Yeah.
That I look at and go like, wow, I would, that's cruel, or I would never do that. But that was me.
Right. Right.
But I fought it. And then there was just one day in April, I forget the year, but I was 13.
Yeah.
And I couldn't fight it anymore.
Really?
And God got a hold of me and didn't let go, so to speak. And I haven't let go. So
was this like an in church moment or in your bedroom moment?
Yeah, we were having a service in church, and it was too heavy and too strong, and I just finally just like, I'm done.
You surrendered.
I give in. So yeah.
Man, did you change pretty quick? Was this like a transformation? Like,
yeah, it was like night and day, so to speak.
Yeah.
And obviously you have your faults and your falls, and your growth and
right.
Prayer and fasting and reading and just learning what to do, what not to do. And but it was pretty immediate in desires, and just I wanted to do right. I wanted to live right.
Wow.
And when I messed up, I wanted to get back on track.
Yeah.
It was life-changing. It was
Who was the most surprised by that transformation?
Probably some of the people I was hanging out with.
Yeah.
I had a lot of older cousins, uncles, things like that, that were just kind of good influences and bad influences. I had people in my life that were just kind of like doing the wrong things, but didn't allow me to do it. So I had to really seek out other people to allow me to do the bad stuff. A lot of people in my life that were doing things that were wrong, but whenever I was around, they were like, you don't get to do this.
Wow.
And early on, the people could tell I was athletic. So it was just kind of like, we got to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get out of here, kind of thing. So yeah, but it was my friends and the people that I was doing the bad stuff with.
Yeah.
And I began to say no, and I don't do that, and I don't go there. And at first, everyone's just kind of like, okay, whatever, he'll be back next week. Yeah. But eventually, I was just kind of like, okay, this is who he is. So yeah.
Dang, that's good stuff. All right. I had my only other football question for now before we talk about, man, Jesus' leadership and what that looks like and how that impacts the culture. I want to hear all about that. My only other question was just about, you talked about your football career was interesting. And like I said, I mean, that covers a lot, a lot of stories that we're not going to talk about, but winning that Aggie Heart Award voted by your teammates. To me, that sounds like that'd be a pretty special deal. Was that something that was for you, or at that point were you just kind of done?
No, it was very, very special. At the beginning of the year, being voted team captain.
Yeah.
End of the year, I'm literally, my wife, girlfriend at the time, and parents are having to hold trophies because it was, that night it was, I think, Aggie Heart, special teams MVP, team captain plaque, something else. And then we had the overall sports banquet, all sports, distinguished letterman, Dwight, I forget his last name, but it's scholar athlete award, and just a bunch of other stuff that's collecting dust at this point. But it was a special night to be recognized by people that I went to battle with. Guys that saw me day in and day out. It's one thing to win something from the coaches or from the public, but for your teammates to recognize you and go, no, we've lived with that guy. Yeah. We see him in study hall. We see him in the locker room. We see him on the field. And that's who we want to give this award to. That's a big blessing. Yeah, that is a big blessing, man. That's huge. And to be honest, like I said, I'm not the best guy on the team. I'm not the best player on the team. So to be recognized as, I don't even know if I'm top 10 on the team.
Okay.
Miles, he wasn't in my class, but just to name like Miles Garrett, the Mike Evans, the Johnny Manziels, the Christian Kirks, the Donovan
Yeah.
Wilsons, who's like balling right now for the Cowboys,
Yeah.
and just go down the list. Armani Watts,
That's
all these
crazy.
guys
Yeah.
they're better football players than I am. So yeah, it was a pretty cool experience.
Man, that's awesome. All right. You just made me think, maybe at the end, if you got a Johnny story you can share, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I know you have to think through that. All right. Hey, you've done great things. I don't even know that I've really touched on this. So I'm just going to go some off your bio. I mean, this is a crazy, a lot of student athletes at the end of their athletic career, man, it's a struggle.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
been a lot of athletes' identity and self-worth and everything. Obviously for you is different, but still hanging up the cleats, is often a challenge. But man, it looks like not for you. I mean, as an entrepreneur, it looks like you become the president of these two multi-million-dollar real estate companies. You do all these things. I mean, you're 28, man. You're 28. You've already done more in the last 5-6 years than most people do with their professional career. So I don't know what you want to tell us about that, but I mean, multiple multi-million-dollar businesses in your early 20s. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Praise be to God.
That's a good answer.
I met my business partner actually fishing in his backyard.
Okay.
All I did was I went up to this guy to say thank you. That conversation turned into a friendship, that turned into a mentorship, that turned into a partnership.
Whoa. Wait, what'd you say thank you for? What?
Allowing us to come fish in his backyard. So I went out to fish, director of player development, took us out there with 5 other guys fishing, and immaculate house, beautiful house in Bryan College Station, which it doesn't look like it belongs here.
Okay.
The lake is about, I guess, 25 acres or so.
Oh my goodness.
A few other people on the lake, and I see this guy walk out of the back, 2 just huge doors onto his patio. And at that point, I thought it all made sense because he's about 7 feet tall. And he looks like, I thought.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, he's 6'11".
Okay.
I thought he was a retired NBA player. So I walk up to him. I said, "Hey, my name's Alex Sezer. Just want to thank you for allowing us to come fish." We began to talk about real estate, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, a bunch of books that I already read that put me in position to have an intelligent conversation with
Crazy.
this guy. And he gave me his phone number, told me if I ever need anything to reach out. I've heard it a million times. I reach out probably about 2 weeks later, send him a text message, and he was all for it, began to kind of mentor me while I was still in college about real estate.
Wow.
Graduated with an engineering degree. I went to work for a company by the name of Opportune in oil and gas consulting. He called me a year later. I was at the power plant. I was traveling a lot. I think I was in Rhode Island at the time.
Were you guys married already at this point?
I was engaged.
Okay.
So she was still in college and I was traveling all over.
Yeah.
And so I messed up her plan. She had a job in Houston to come see me, and he offers me this position. He didn't have any children, anything to come and take over for him. Not immediately, but that was the trajectory. That was the path. I came in, did all of the dirty work, started managing property. Looked up a year later, he's asked me to become the president. I told him no.
What?
Because I thought what he meant by president was essentially kind of like a paperwork, COO, administrative.
Yeah.
And he's very much a delegator, and I just didn't want to be stuck in the office having to deal with the logistics of everything. I want to go buy property.
Yeah. Okay.
So we negotiated for about a year, and eventually I walk into his office and he says, "What do you think about being the president?" I looked at him. I said, "Doug, what does the president do?" And he told me, "Whatever you want to do." I said, "I'll take it." So become the president of the company.
Alex.
Founded my own company, Sezer Enterprises. He's a partner in that company, and bought about 340 units in the last few years. And before God told me it was time for me to go do something else, I sold that company back to him. Had to essentially kind of bring him back into the flock. He was as retired as he'd ever been.
Okay.
He's back in, kind of doing everything, and he knows he can call me anytime. But he's back in the fold now, and he didn't want to hire anyone else, so he's the CEO and just kind of keeping everything in order. And So yeah, but it was a normal Saturday. God called me to do something else. Called my dad, told him about it. Had no plans on leaving. We just purchased an RV park, and my dad said, "Oh yeah, I knew that." Hold on. What do you mean you knew it was time for me to go? And he said, I had a dream when you were packing up your office. I said, when are you going to tell me this? He told me, it's not my job to tell you, it's my job to confirm it.
Yeah.
So that was clarity enough for me. I told my partner, I thought it would be a hard conversation. It was an easy one.
Really?
And he knew.
That's amazing. Okay. He could tell.
I was writing a while back. I had this thing called restoration letters. And this is years ago.
Okay.
Whenever I first got with the company. And the first letter, he read it. And the restoration letters was basically, we were buying property, renovating, and I was talking about how essentially we're all in need of restoration. And some of us have a cracked foundation, and some of us just need a simple paintbrush, but God is in the restoration business. So I equated it to an investment, how we are the greatest investment, and how human assets are. That God saw something and sent his only son to die for us in our place, and how he saw more in us than what was there. So that that we're all just same way I look at an asset and go, there's gold there. And people are like, that old ugly house. I'm like, you don't understand. It won't look like that always. And how God sees us, and he goes, he won't look like that always. She won't be like that always.
Yep.
So he read that letter. And he walked into my office the next morning. I think I was maybe a year into the company.
Yeah.
And he walks in my office and he goes, I'm scared. And I'm thinking, what are you scared about?
Yeah.
He said, I read your letter and I have a feeling you won't be here forever.
Wow.
So I think he knew eventually, like, I got into real estate so I could essentially preach and have the financial stability of real estate.
Was that the idea?
Yeah, that was my idea. That was the idea I present to him, was I want passive income to preach and not have to charge. God had other plans.
Wow. Yeah.
He's put me in a space now where, talking, speaking, preaching, coaching is my profession. But I was looking for a way where I could do that. And I still do a lot of it. So obviously I have a lot of paid engagements, but on the other side is, if you're local or if it's something that just tugs on my heart and God says go, a lot of times I show up. And I've been speaking for free for years and years and years. And now it's become an income source. But it was me being faithful to where God was placing me at the moment. But he knew I wouldn't be there forever. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, talk to us, man. That'd be hard for a lot of people to walk away from, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you did it.
Obedience. So I told him it was time for me to go. He made me an offer. He says, Alex, I believe you're talented enough that you can do this job. He says, go start your other business. Show up one day a month, one day a week. I don't care. He says, just keep your title. I'll pay you the same amount of money I'm paying you right now. Just go start your other business. Like, I just want you to still be around. I want you to still be on the payroll. I still want to be able to call you when I need to. And I had to turn him down.
Wow. How did you know you had to turn him down? And did your wife agree with you?
She knows my crazy at this point. And she's seen
crazy.
She's seen the rewards from obedience, so she's not concerned. She's actually putting in her notice. She's already put in her notice, so I can say it. But so she's coming home, and we don't have any W-2s over here anymore. So she's seen it. She knows. But for me, it was one. I think I knew the inner workings of the company a little bit better than he did. So I knew that it couldn't stay at the level I wanted it to if I wasn't around. Okay. And I'm a believer in whatever your hand finds to do it with your might. So I did not want to be a poor steward of that position because I kind of had glimpses of where God was taking me. And it required all of my time. So I just knew I couldn't be half in, half out. And there's a little bit of freaky side of me that's kind of wired for competition, and I like the back against the wall. So I'm like, no parachute, like, let's go, like I'm jumping. So and God's proven to be faithful.
Right. That's great. Well, talk to us about some of these new opportunities and what that looks like for you. And then if we still have time to talk about applying Jesus' leadership model, I want to, but
Yeah.
what can you tell us about what these new opportunities look like?
So I did a lot of different interviews, so to speak, with guys that I knew in the private equity space. I thought maybe I'd start my own real estate fund. I didn't know exactly where God was leading me. It kind of felt
Yeah,
like Abram, go to a land, I'll show you.
that's right.
God, how do I know? I'll show you. When you get
That's
there,
right.
you'll know.
Yeah.
So I come home and big whiteboard on the wall. And I'm just like, all right, God, do what you're going to do. Do what you've always done. And I've been working on biblical entrepreneurship for a long time.
Mm.
And I have about 30 different modules on the board, 30 different chapters. I thought maybe it'd be a book or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the office just praying about the next step. And I look up at the board.
Yeah.
And not an audible voice, but just kind of an unction, felt the Spirit speak and say the first 7 things on your board are how culture is created. And I'm just kind of like, what? So I look up at the board.
Whoa.
And the board said the first 7 things on the board were vision, mission, purpose, core values, branding, team building, and authenticity.
Wow.
And I'm like, all right, God, got my first marching order. Like, what does that mean? And all of the experience, all of the leadership, everything just kind of culminated into Culture Catalyst. Guide for, profitable and passionate organizations and purpose-driven organizations. So it's essentially step by step. Number one, what is culture? So it's starting with a collective definition of culture. Why does it matter? The importance of it and how it's created is how I started this study, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then God just began to speak to me through his word and give me the passage for vision and mission and purpose. And all those things came together into a more strategic, formulaic approach to where I could teach it to other leaders. And it turned into a course and curriculum and things like that.
Wow.
And now being able to combine that with even what I'm doing, in the corporate space, but in the school space as well. So a lot of times if I go and speak to a group of students or do a convocation for teachers, now they're adding on, hey, we want to have a breakout session for leadership training and things like that. So it's just a vast, the network that I have, the experience that I've had and been blessed to have. A lot of my teammates are coaching in NFL, coaching in colleges, coaching at the high school level, teachers, other coaches that have dispersed. So a lot of those doors are starting to open up now in the school systems, in the corporate space, in the athletic world. So it's been a fun journey just to be obedient and put one foot in front of the other.
Man, that is fantastic. I love it. Well, it's obvious that you have great leadership skills, and it's amazing to me that that you had written down those 7 words and the Holy Spirit spoke.
Yeah, it was clear.
That's really cool. Well, talk to me about, what your leadership has looked like and how it is inspired and what you take from the Bible and the Jesus model of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about the model, and then I can even get into any one of those words that I mentioned and tell you how it's biblically implemented in the curriculum and everything. But essentially, when you think about the model that Jesus left, I think of 2 things. I think of empathy and I think of scale. So what I mean by empathy is that he dwelt among us. He lived the life that we live. He faced the temptations that we face. So he didn't just sympathize from the throne. He empathized in the manger. So when you look at the model that he left us as a leader, it's very important that we empathize with our people. It's very important that we understand their viewpoints and perspectives and where they're coming from. And when you communicate from a standpoint of empathy, it opens up those windows. It lets down those walls and those barriers that are up, because it's very much what I see in organizations is this us versus them, the head coach versus the players, the CEO versus the employees. But when we can lead with empathy, it starts to kind of build that bridge to say, hey, I get it. Hey, I understand. Hey, we're in this together. So that's the first thing I think of. The second thing I think of is scale.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by that. I can't wait to hear this.
If you look at the model of Christ, we still talk about him 2,000 plus years later. One, because of his deity, but 2, because of his model. His disciples, it was this leadership replication model. Whereas I am going to pour into you. I am going to learn from me. I'm going to show you my ways. And then after that, he says, teach those ways to other people. So kind of as John Maxwell says, number one, you do it. So you master it. Number two, you do it and bring somebody with you. Number
Mm.
three, you have them do it while you supervise. Number four,
That's
have
good.
them do it, empower them, have them
That's
do it.
good.
And number five, have them do it and bring someone else with them. So now we have leaders creating leaders.
That's good, Alex.
So if you look at this model, he came, dwelt among us,
Yeah.
he taught, and then he says, now you go teach. Go ye
Yeah.
therefore and make disciples. The same
Right.
way you learn from me, teach it to other people. Entrust this to faithful men, kind of that Timothy 2:2 type of deal. It's like
Yeah.
everything that he did, he was building for his physical body not to be on this earth anymore, for his physical presence not to be here anymore. So he was preparing his disciples for his absence.
Yeah.
So a lot of times in businesses, we see that the vision, the purpose, all of those things die with the visionary. But when you can prepare your people to operate in your absence, when we don't have this huge drop off, that comes from a model of scale. He says, I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Yes.
Whatever you loose on earth, loose in heaven. Whatever you bind on earth, bound in heaven. So what does that mean? He gave those disciples, the power and authority to make decisions that would impact his bottom line on heaven or on earth and in heaven.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, when we have employees and team members, when you give them those keys, so to speak, is you're giving them power to make decisions that impact your bottom line. And Christ did the same exact thing.
It's good.
So he can do it without us. He'd rather do it with
Right.
us. So he scaled through people, through leadership replication.
Right, man. That's good. That's good.
So that's kind of the overarching model that I see in scripture. And the second thing is kind of the, I guess, scriptural fingerprint on the stuff that I teach. So I mentioned words like vision and mission and purpose and things like that.
Yeah.
All of that has Bible backing. So whenever I talk about vision, I go into an organization and teach people how to write vision statements. I come straight from Habakkuk chapter 2. It says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets of stone. So whoever reads it may run with it. If it tarries, wait for it. It's for an appointed time. And it, basically says that the vision is for an appointed time. If it tarries, wait for it to surely come.
Yeah.
So I kind of butchered that scripture, but so
I don't know.
I'm going to make it make sense. So from there, I go in and teach people how to write vision statements and things like that. So I have the 5 P's of vision that, like I said, the Spirit spoke to me to speak through me. I can't take credit for it. Number 1 is that your vision statement must be personal. A lot of times we see these vision statements and it's copy and paste. That sounds cool. Let's do that. So how do we make this vision statement personal to our organization, personal to what we aspire to achieve? Habakkuk says, the Lord answered me. It was a personal vision to what his nation of Judah was experiencing during that time. They were dealing with the conflict of how can God be good when bad things happen. So it was a personal statement to that nation.
Yeah.
Number 2, vision needs to be permanent. He says to write it on tablets of stone. If you write anything on stone, that signifies faith for the fruition of that idea. You don't just go around writing stuff on stone. You write it in pencil on paper. But writing it on stone signifies it's permanent.
Wow.
And now it can be shared with consistency and clarity. So we don't have the telephone game to where Alex says this and then it comes out the other end. It sounds completely different.
Yeah.
So it's written, it's permanent, it's shareable, it's consistent. Number 3, it needs to be practical. Make it plain. We don't want vision statements are not so that I can sound smart. It's so that my listeners can gain clarity.
It's good, man.
So a lot of times we use these cliches and these jargons and these big words. And it's like, no. Make it plain. Number 4, it must be purposeful. It says that whoever reads it can run with it. So a vision statement is a call to action that prompts towards progress. So anyone who reads your vision and is inspired by it should see it and go, I can do something with this. This makes sense. This is purpose driven. I can get to work on it. And lastly, it has to be patient. I believe it was T.D. Jakes said that a visionary sees what shall be, wakes up to deal with what is. So it's how do we blend our vision statements with perseverance for today? And then also that long-term patience for sometimes it's 5 years out, 10 years out, 3 years out. So that's just a simple way of how I incorporate biblical principles into the teachings. I do the same exact thing with purpose. Jesus endured the cross for the joy that was set before him. says, consider him unless you grow weary. So basically what that tells us, if you want to be a person of perseverance, consider the model left by Jesus, which was, he had something set before him. He had a purpose. He had a reason for going to the cross. So if you want to be a Christian that endures, that runs this race with perseverance, purpose produces perseverance. So just things like that. And I go deeper, but just kind of a simple.
Come on, man. Did you come up with those? I know you said
you.
the Holy Spirit, but did you come up with those 7 things?
Yeah, all of it. Everything in the course, everything in the modules, everything in the teaching.
Okay.
Obviously, I've read a lot of books, done a lot of studies, but all of the words, all of the alliterations were things that literally just dropped on me. So don't think I'm smart. Just think that God's great. So
God is great. I do think you're smart nonetheless. So these, I may have missed something, but you have courses that people can take, or what am I missing here, Alex?
Yeah, so I have online training, alexsezer.com. You'll see a courses tab. Also I do stuff in person, keynote speaking based on, leadership and culture, how culture is created, why it matters. And then also in person, workshops and things like that. There's a lot of stuff in this one entity, so to speak, of Alex Sezer, but God's been busy, and I'm just being obedient.
Man, I love it. All right, I've got and we're gonna wrap up because I've totally lost track of time. I've had you on for like 7 hours. I said we would do 8. No, I lost track of time, man. I hope you don't have a bunch of appointments or anything, but we can start to wind down. I'm so excited by everything that you've shared.
Yeah, we're literally just scratching the surface. This is crazy.
I know. I could tell, but it's like I'm excited. So it's like one of those like fire hydrants things of like, man, this is so good. This is so good that, I mean, yeah, it's amazing what you're sharing. I have a preaching question.
Okay.
Because maybe I want to know if you got this from TD Jakes or somebody else. I don't know, but you said he didn't sympathize from the throne. And then what'd you say about empathizing from the manger? What'd you say?
Yeah, he didn't sympathize from the throne. He empathized from the manger.
Now, was that you, or did you get that from somebody?
This is the first time I've ever said that.
Oh,
no, I'm look, like, you can look at any other podcast I've ever done. That's the first time I've ever said that statement to anyone or myself. So I think I've said maybe sympathize from the throne, empathize on earth. I've never said empathize in the manger. So that's where I got it from right here. I've never said that before.
I love that, man.
That's a very bold exclusive.
Very bold, baby. Well, I have a feeling it won't be the last time people hear Alex Sezer say that. That was awesome. That was very anointed. So I didn't want to give you credit if it was something that you had heard and were quoting.
That's why I love interviews, because I literally never know what I'm going to say. And from it comes all of these different sayings and gems. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And whenever I get off, I'm writing stuff down because I've never said it before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's good, man. That's good. All right. Anything else you just feel like sharing with us? I know you can share for a while.
We could talk for days, but
I know.
Check out alexsezer.com.
Okay.
If you're a principal, superintendent, business owner, love to work for you, love to work with you, love to help you out. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff is, free. So you can find me there, Alex Sezer, Sezer. So love to be of service to anyone that I can be of service to. So yeah, thanks for having me.
That's awesome. All right, Alex. I said if you closed with if you got a Johnny story for us, do you got anything you can share before we totally close this out?
So let me think of a good Johnny story. So I'm going to take this in a different direction.
Good. Go for it.
It's not necessarily this is a Johnny story.
Take it.
I'll just say this. I was there right around the time that Johnny became Johnny Football. So I walked into the Johnny Mania. I don't know if there's many people on the face of this planet who could handle what he went through. It was literally, when you think kind of overnight, just this insane rise to fame, to where you go from practice team to like Drake and LeBron personal phone number type deal. Like, and it just happened so quick. So man, he was under an extreme amount of pressure. He could not walk to class without having a hoodie on that was like squeezed, and a hoodie and a hat that covered his face. Eventually
Wow.
couldn't even go to class anymore. So
Wow.
he was another guy on the team, to be honest.
Okay.
People at some point, that football team may have a 30 for 30 just because it was just a crazy time. You have Johnny Mania. I think we had like 13 players get arrested. Like just
Oh, wow.
stuff that you kind of like,
Yeah.
I think we had more players get arrested than the U of old.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So much so that we had like a internal meeting with the police officers so that they could see our faces and know us and try to get some type of symmetry going with the police department. But yeah, he was just a normal guy. He took me under his wing right when I got there. We had some mutual friends. So he was never this, oh, I'm Johnny Manziel, big time, like freshmen don't talk to me. Like, well, he was one of the first people I met on campus.
Yeah.
Great guy to be around. Very down to earth around his friends. Was probably perceived in the wrong way in the public because of, hey man, like if I'm just out and I just want to be out and you got 100 people that want you to sign something, you're going to upset someone. So,
right.
I just like to say he's a normal guy. He's a normal guy on the team. He was just another guy in the locker room. And, he's made some moves in life and, done, all of us have made mistakes, but Johnny's, he's a teammate.
That's good.
So he was just another guy, and I'm thankful to have played with him and just got to experience all of his greatness and fame, so to speak. But yeah, he was, contrary to popular belief, just another guy on the team.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I got you. That was great. I love the direction you took that. That was really helpful. Man, Alex Sezer Jr., you are the man. Golly.
I know the man. I'm not the man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I love it, man. Gosh, this has just been a real joy, just getting to know you and
Likewise.
Hearing, man, just the many blessings of what God is doing through you and in you, and for your family. We didn't talk about on air, just fatherhood is coming really fast. So congratulations to you and your wife. That's really exciting. And this is just awesome, man. I am fired up, excited to see what God continues to do with you and your ministry. And by saying ministry, though, I mean, you're in public schools, you're with businesses. You're being the light, that Jesus said, you're the light of the world. Crazy that Jesus said, I'm the light of the world, but then he turns it on you and says, you're the light of the world. I feel like that goes back to what you were talking about, empowering people and stuff. So, man, we're fired up to be Team Alex Sezer. So this has just been great. Yeah. Man, I'll sign off. Just hang on a second. I'll stop this recording. We sign off by just remembering God's goodness and the goodness of Jesus. And that's why we're Very Bold Ministries. Amen. And Very Bold Radio and Podcast. And it goes with the Apostle Paul when he just talk about transformation and 180. And the 180 that you had when you were 13 that he had much later, and he was running and chasing after those goals and checkbox religion and all that, trying to do the right thing, but his heart was never right. And he finally recognized that when he met the risen Lord and Savior on the road to Damascus. And when he considered about just the greatness and the glory of God and the Holy Spirit, the ministry of the Holy Spirit, the ministry of redemption, all that God has poured out on us with the new covenant, praise God.
Yes,
the Apostle Paul said, because of that, we can be very bold. And so it literally is from 2 Corinthians 3:12, and this I'll sign off. And don't forget Alex Sezer, alexsezer.com. Man, reach out, follow this guy, man, be a part of this guy's team. Bring him to your school, bring him wherever. Let his influence, what God is doing, touch your life. But the Apostle Paul said this, 2 Corinthians 3:12, therefore, since we have such a hope, we are very bold.
Therefore, since we have such a hope, we are very bold.